On the outside, the Weizmann Institute in Rehovot looks like a bucolic college campus, but inside it looks more like a science fiction movie set with high-tech equipment like lasers and glove boxes. Researchers here try to be on the cutting edge of their fields. For Eran Elinav, that means personalized medicine, finding individual treatment for each patient.
10 years ago, would be all treated according to similar protocols, because that's all we knew, that's all the knowledge that existed as to their disease. But today, we are gradually able to, for example, characterize each person's genome and to find risk alleles or risk genes for their particular variant of cancer, and then to tailor to them treatment that actually better fits their personal disease.
About 15 years ago, researchers mapped the human genome at a cost of $1 billion. Now it costs just $1,000 to map one person's genome. But Dr. Elinav is also interested in what he calls our second genome, or the microbiome.
When I say microbes, I'm referring to trillions of bacteria that reside within us and around us, on the skin, gut, genitourinary tract, but also viruses, hundreds of viruses, fungi, and even parasites. And all of them form a world within a world, an ecosystem within us that closely interacts with the host and has fundamental impact on every aspect of our physiology and on the development of many important multifactorial diseases.
Unlike the genome, he says, microbes are much easier to change through diet or medicine. The field is just in its infancy.
We're talking about a field that is very young. It's only 5 or 6 years old. And it's getting a lot of interest, and therefore it's being more and more widespread both in Israel and in the United States. There are more and more groups, research groups, that are interested in studying and pursuing different aspects of how the microbes and their interaction with the host affect our health or the propensity for disease, and this is getting to be, the field is getting larger and larger in recent years.
In another building, Elad Schneidman smiles at his zebrafish, which he uses to study behavior in a group. When these fish are young, they're transparent, and it's possible to use special dyes to see the neurons in their brain firing.
Billions and billions of neurons in your brain, and they talk to one another with sequences of electrical pulses. That's the basic alphabet of the language of the brain. And this thing is common in basically almost all the animals we know. I mean, it goes from flies to mice to blue whales and us. There are these long sequences of electrical pulses that if you actually connect a neuron to a speaker, you can hear them as something like a Morse code.
He says he's trying to decipher that language, which could lead to new understandings of how we process and store information in the brain and ways of looking into how people learn. The Institute encourages communication across disciplines.
My work is sort of on the borderline between materials science and optical physics.
He deals with nanoparticles.
It's a very tiny piece of material, a very tiny rock if you want, which has dimensions of about a billionth of a meter, or a fraction of a millionth of an inch for the people who don't use the metric system, and contains a few thousands or a few tens of thousands of atoms. So it's a very tiny piece of material. When you work with such tiny pieces of material, the properties that you are familiar with from the macroscopic world are very different. So a piece of material, simply by shrinking its size to very small dimensions, changes a lot of its properties. If you consider the basic optical properties like color, it even changes its color.
These nanoparticles can be used in photovoltaic cells to make solar energy cheaper and more effective. For the Media Line, I'm Linda Gradstein in Rehovot.